Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, Principal Atmospheric Scientist at Nutrient Ag Solutions, and I want to thank you for watching this weekly Ag Weather Update brought to you by the Farm Credit Associations of North Carolina. We're going to go back to yesterday on Sunday and take a look at the winds here midday yesterday. And you can see the deep low that was just right here north of the Great Lakes. And I'll tell you something, around us we were seeing sustained winds in the 40 to 70 mile an hour range. In fact, as they were going across the Great Lakes, they actually pushed the water to be an extra 11 feet deep on this side of Lake Erie. Well, out ahead of that was a frontal boundary, a pretty strong one. As it went through the northeast, it produced a lot of severe wind reports from strong to severe storms. But we can see the position of that front draping to the south, pushing across the Carolinas, which it did give us a drop in our temperatures. You compare this morning's temperatures to yesterday's, and we were looking at a difference here of about 15 to 20 degrees. But I want to be talking about a few records here, and we're going to start with this one. That's Theta. Tropical storm Theta. It is the farthest east we've ever observed a tropical system in the month of November. We come down here to Iota, and this morning we were watching the reconnaissance flights go into Iota, and I'm going to be looking here in a few minutes for some updates here. But this combined with Eta, which is what you see here, all right, this is the leftovers of Eta combined with a couple other systems. These two systems make November also a record setter for having two major hurricanes in the month of November. Now, I want to rewind the clock and show you what Eta did, and we're going to first go here to this map looking at the last 7 days of total accumulated precipitation. As anticipated in last week's video, we talked about the heavy rain potential across parts of the Carolinas getting into Virginia. And I'll tell you this, the models actually did underperform on this. We saw several locations here that picked up well in excess of 6 inches of rainfall. And I know you saw all last week, at the end of last week at least, and over the weekend, the videos of the bridges being blown out, the flooding across the region, and it was pretty nasty. Now, there is some good news in my forecast. It will be drier as we move throughout this next week, but it'll take a while for us to recover from the incredibly heavy rains that we saw here. Now, I want to show you how historically important. So let's talk about another record here those rains were. And the graphic you're looking at here is from Morehead City. So we launched weather balloons in two places in North Carolina, Greensboro and Morehead City. So when we launched them, some of the information that those soundings, those weather balloons collect, tells us what's called total precipitable water. How much water is in the atmosphere over, for this example, Morehead City, that can be precipitated out. Okay, the red line is the record highest amount that we've ever observed since launching weather balloons. We're going to have a new record once these data are updated, and it's right here. There was over 2.35 inches of moisture in the atmosphere at any given point that could be precipitated out, and it was constantly being replenished. Here's another way of looking at it. Go back to Thursday morning. This map shows you precipitable water now in map form, and what I want to show you here is a bit of statistics about it. Now, we've all remembered there's something called the standard deviation. We always look at how far away from the mean you are in terms of standard deviation. Okay, let's put the statistics aside and just give you the number. 5.2. We had 5.2 standard deviations above the mean, which means this is deep into record territory. That is how much moisture sat over you last week, and as it came out, it was incredibly heavy. So now we update this map from January 1st to the 16th of November. Total precipitation ranks by climate district, and now we see that there are at least 4 regions that are right now recording the wettest year on record, and 2 to the south here that are the second wettest. And just to show you, I pulled up the Greensboro area data, and right now, here's where we currently sit. We are just about 1.5 inches below our record-setting year of 2003 for that particular station in Greensboro. So it's incredible to see these numbers when put all together here. Now, thankfully, as the front came through over the weekend, it didn't do much. In fact, this is our total accumulated precipitation over the last 72 hours. And here's that front. You can see it stretches all the way down into the Gulf of Mexico. And thankfully, as it came through us over the weekend, all we got out of it from yesterday to today is just a drop in temperature for the most part as the front slid through. But with the severe wind reports that produced, I just want to show you an interesting statistic about 2020. Right now, we're currently sitting here. When they add in the nearly 500 reports of severe winds that frontal boundary produced north of us, that will make 2020 the second most abundant in terms of severe wind reports from thunderstorms in the last 15 years. And it'll be second only to 2011, which was way up here. So I just want to give you some more of these stats. Okay, what's going on with Iota? Well, this is what the overnight satellite imagery looked like, and this was a rapidly intensifying and honestly very healthy looking hurricane. So I'm just going to do this real quick. Let's exit out of this presentation. Here is the latest data. So I was watching this come in here. This is from the flight this morning from the NOAA P3. That's the Orion P3. And you can see that they caught a wind speed of 150 knots. So we need to see if this ends up getting upgraded to Category 5. But as we go back to our presentation here, what this will likely mean is once we get our next update, so this is the 7 a.m. Eastern time update where they had those max sustained winds at 155, this might become, well, it'd be our first Category 5 strength hurricane of the 2020 season. It's amazing to think that, right? The first one, but it is the 30th named storm, which of course is smashing records. Where's Iota going? It's going to stay in Central America. And the problem there is that we're going to be putting down in excess, so this is in addition to normal, in excess of 10 to 20 inches of rainfall, which means the flooding problems here are going to be continued after Eta went through this same area causing flooding, 12, 13 days ago. All right, the tropics. Let's now go to the extratropics where the jet stream is. I'm noticing rather long waves in the flow. Can you see them here? Not so many very sharp, short waves. We got one right here, but outside of that, very long waves in the flow of the atmosphere. And we need to ask ourselves, what does that mean? Well, if we just watch the next couple of days here, it means things are going to be relatively dry, and higher atmospheric pressure is going to be moving in by midweek. So we're going to start off this week relatively dry. Where do we get beyond that? Well, through the next 7 days, that high pressure cell sitting here is going to keep North and South Carolina on the drier side of things, and we'll go on a warming trend, especially toward the end of this week. If we watch that happen here, at least with the precipitation first, this is our operational European model. And playing it forward, there's that high we saw develop in the high resolution run from the NAM, but this is going out to Thursday, into Friday, now into Saturday, and Sunday. And we just see that that high pressure cell really kind of hangs on for much of our week, keeping us on the sunny side of things, on the drier side of things, and that is something we need. When does our next chance at precipitation really get here? Well, it may not be until next Monday evening when the front comes through, but even at that point, the operational Euro is saying maybe it's not that wet as it even comes through. So we're looking at a drier than average, especially next 10 to possibly 15 days here. Let's take a look at what the upper levels of the atmosphere are suggesting. Well, playing this forward, we do have to deal with this trough early in the week. So we're going to be cool through midweek compared to normal. But look at the ridge that builds in behind it. And as that ridge builds in, the high pressure is just downstream of it near the surface right here. And that's what keeps us both high and dry. Now getting out here to Friday, into Saturday, and Sunday, we just don't see deep troughs sweeping through until possibly this one comes through my home state of Illinois by Sunday into Monday and then brings a front through us next Monday, Tuesday, increasing our chances of precipitation. But what you're going to notice is, look at this over here. This seems to be where the atmosphere keeps reloading with its troughs, sweeping them into the western part of the United States. And even as we go out to day 10, that's where the troughs seem to sit. By day 15, they're still sitting here, which means our pattern is relatively relaxed and therefore is not going to show a high probability of precipitation and is also going to show chances for us warming up. So going out here looking from this Wednesday to next Wednesday, our chances of staying dry all across the southeast to the mid-Atlantic is relatively high. As we then get out here beyond that time period, looking only at week 2, maybe as that front comes sliding through here, do we get a chance of increased precipitation. But overall, our next 10 to 15 days is going to favor drier conditions rather than wetter. What about the temperatures? Well, I told you it's going to take till midweek before we really start to see some warmth coming back in. So today, 50s and low 60s are going to be the temperatures we're going to experience. Going from today into tomorrow, this is Tuesday and now into Wednesday. That's going to be a cooler one for us on Wednesday as the trough finally pulls through. But going from Wednesday into Thursday, now watch this, Friday, Saturday, getting into our next weekend, we bounce right back up there into the mid-60s over by the coast into the 70s. So we're going to have a lot of sunshine this week and calm conditions, but the temperatures are going to have to go on a little bit of a roller coaster ride before we rebound here. Now, what about beyond that? Days 5 through 10 in the forecast, the cold air resets in Canada. Look at the temperatures here across much of the eastern half of the United States, sitting anywhere between the 1 to 5 degrees above average. Europeans picking up on the same thing. What about days 10 through 15? Overall, the pattern continues to stay in those longer waves, and as a result, we're going to continue across this broad sector to see near average to warmer than average conditions as we get all the way out to the beginning of December. Now, the long-range models for the first 2 weeks of December don't want to let this go. They want to keep placing all the cold air here and have the jet stream run in between the two. But I'm going to tell you something. There's a few moving pieces we're going to have to be on the lookout for. And one of them is going to be what's going on with the polar vortex. Well, where is it currently sitting right now? It's in this vicinity, all right? And what we're going to watch for, and I like to show these graphics over here on the right, is we're going to watch for any time that the polar vortex values drop off. Now, currently, the polar vortex is sitting right here. And remember, the stronger the polar vortex, the more the cold air stays over the North Pole. So if it stayed up here at these high values all winter, the chances of us getting big colder outbreaks is limited. What we watch for is a disturbance in this, which would take us, for example, from that X down here on the graph as we go through December. At this point, there are a couple of indications that this might become displaced and move away from the Chukchi Sea, the Bering Sea, and it might start to swivel on around, but if it stays strong, it doesn't matter. That doesn't unleash the cold air. I'm basically just telling you that we're now in the months where we have to start watching for disruptions in the polar vortex that could cause some issues for us later on down the time scale here throughout the season. That's really what we're focusing on. What else is happening? Well, let's go from the poles to the tropics. The MJO has come out here of phase 2 and is heading into the null phase, which is this circle. Now, what does that mean? In the near term, our best upper level support is sitting right over phase 2, but it weakens and starts to slide over here to phase 4 and 5. Translation, the MJO is going to take a back seat to La Nina once again. You see, this is going from midsummer now through the 14th of November, and we see that La Nina is getting stronger. And in the near term, look at these blue colors in through here. That's telling me some strong trade winds are pushing all the way over toward Indonesia, north of Australia. So if that's going to be the case, the slight warm-up we've seen inside this area, I mean, it's still cold there compared to normal, but the slight warm-up in these ocean temperatures will probably reinvigorate back over to some cooler temperatures, which means we're going to continue to see this La Nina persist to develop through the month of December. From there, though, where is that going to have its most immediate effect? Because we've talked about the pattern in North America. Let's wrap this up by giving you a quick discussion about South America. On the left, I have what the European model is calling for in terms of accumulating precipitation through the next week. And on the right, it's the same map, but now showing you differences from normal. And what we're watching is this part right down here. So for corn, soybeans, and cotton, we need to keep a close eye on these regions. This is Brazil's main growing area that I'm kind of hatching here. And this will be where I put the X, Argentina's main growing area. Now, we know that the rains have not come in a way that have really been beneficial to the early crop on a broad scale. Okay, so that means that we're pulling back on some of the potential for a massive crop coming out of South America. But I'm going to watch Argentina very carefully. They've been dry. Their forecast to stay dry over the next week. And even though the week 2 precipitation forecast says, hey, they're looking as though they're going to go wet, you need to watch this with me all week to see if this starts to trend toward the drier side of things. Because it's trending drier north, and that is largely a consequence of the fading of the MJO back into null space and the strengthening La Nina. So we got a lot to watch, both in North America and South America. And with that, though, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this one up. I'll start preparing your next long-range forecast and release it to you soon. But until then, have a great week. Enjoy the sunshine. Watch for the warm-up toward the end of the week. And also enjoy the fact that it's not raining. We'll stop there. Have a good one. Thank you.